Welcome back. This is episode 4 of the Computer Programming 1 PyGame Final Project game series. We're continuing right where we left off, and today we need to pick up a second player and add a little bit to our event loop to make the players move around. So to get started, the easiest part will be creating our second player. In order to do this, we're going to want a different color. 2 colors for the players. One of them is going to be blue and the other one's going to be red. We're doing this, of course, so that it makes it easier for any player of the game to distinguish between who they are and who their opponent is. As this is a game designed to be played between 2 players on 1 keyboard, that's what we're going to need to do. So let's create a new instance in our colors dictionary called red, and you can feed it the default red value of 255, 0, and 0. After we've got that taken care of, all we're going to need to do, we don't need to mess with the player class yet. All we need to do is come over to where we have our players referenced in our game file and add a new player. P2 equals a player.player. We want his X position to be at 700 and his Y position to be at 500. That's going to put him in the opposite corner of the screen from the player that we currently have. We're going to fill him with data.colors of red because he's the second player, and we need to give him a surface, so screen. Create the second player. So that's all done. Now the next step is, well, let's run the game and see what it did. Everything worked out alright. Uh-oh, it didn't, because we forgot something. We need to update the player before we can draw him to the screen. So p2.update, draw and update second player. There we go. If you caught that, good on you. I don't know why I missed that. I usually remember that, but here we go. We've got our red and our blue players. Now neither one of them can move due to anything on the keyboard yet. I'm pushing all the buttons I can find. Nothing's happening. So let's go make that happen. First things first, we're going to come into our player class and add 2 new values. I like to call these values self.mx and self.my, but you can kind of call them anything that works for you. I use self.mx because it's the move x value. It's what I use to move the x value. And of course self.my stands for move y. We need to set both of these equal to 0. And this is just creating a value and another value to be created. So after we've got those 2 values created, and again you can name those really whichever one you want, all we need to do is update our position. So down here, let's go ahead and update our position. And we'll do this by saying self.x plus equals self.mx. Change our x position by the value of move x. That makes sense, right? We're taking a value, an arbitrary point in space, and creating a modifier for it. So here's our value. Oh, what am I drawing in? Okay, there we go. There's our value. And this is at, say, 0, 0. And as soon as we want to move it, all we have to do is make that x value 5, right? And then every frame it will take the value. So first value, x, y is 0, so this will add 5. So now for our second frame, we'll be 5 pixels over, and we'll say that's this far. So we've been shifted 5 pixels. Well, in the next frame, it's going to add another 5 pixels to it, because it's going to take the previous value and add 5. So here's 5 more. And the next frame, it'll do the same thing. So it'll add 5 more pixels. We'll be out here. So this is how we get smooth movement in Python, by adding 5 pixels to every frame, especially if you're using the clock.tick30 function that we set up in, I believe it was the first video. This system will work absolutely beautifully for that. We'll be able to move very smoothly and with ease. So that's basically as far as we're going with the movement. We're just going to be adding or subtracting or making that value 5 or -5 or 0 if we don't want it to move. So let's do the same thing for the y. Self.y plus equals self.my. This will be to change our y position by the value of move y. So now that's been implemented into our player class, we can come back to our game class and, well, finish this episode. We just have to add some code to our event loop here. We want to check for a new event if event.type is equal to PyGame.keydown. So the way that key events work in PyGame is kind of dumb. It's a flag system. So if we come back in here to paint, I just get rid of this really quick, and then I'll do a quick bucket fill of, we'll go dark blue on this one. Nope, I want dark blue. I like that dark blue. There we go. And now I'll take, there we go, this thing. So if we have a key, any key, every single key on the keyboard, and it goes through and say there's the A key, the B key, and the C key. Those are the three that we'll use for right now. These are all the actual keys on the keyboard. On key down, it's going to take this A key and it's going to set it to true. It's going to flag it as true. And then keep running forever. So there's two. There's on key down, so on key down, and on key release, or on key up. And key up does the opposite of this. This checks if the value is true. Alright, well now let's make it false. So our key down is going to check if we push this button, set its value equal to true. The key up is going to say right here, if we push this button, this same button, so we're going to reference from up here, then set that key equal to false. So in our game, if we wanted to create a our player to move when we push, say, the D key. If we push the D key, we want our player to move to the left, because if we use W, A, S, and D to control player 1, our D key makes sense to move to, the right, because it is on the right of that whole little block. So we're going to be using the D key. The problem is, if we just say if pygame.keyDown, if event.key is equal to D, our player is going to start moving 5 pixels every frame and never stop, even if we let go of D. Because we're not calling an event to check if D's been released yet. So we have to check if D's been pressed, and then if D has been released, so if we're no longer pressing this, stop moving them by 5 pixels. So that's our next step. So if the key is down, if event.key is equal to pygame.k_d, this is how we reference our keys. So capital K underscore lowercase letter. And that's referencing the actual D key on the D board. So this is check if the D key is pressed. Then P1, our first player, .mx equals 5. Set our player's move x value to 5. Pretty simple. Now, if we just run this as it is, we'll see the same thing that I just showed you in Paint. It's running, but I'm letting go of D. I'm tapping D, actually, very repeatedly, and it's never stopping. So we need to start our second loop. If event.type is equal to pygame.key up. So if a key, check if any key is released. If events.key is equal to pygame.k_d, we're going to check if the D key is released this time instead of pressed. Then we want our x value to go back to 0. Set our player's move x value to 0. Now let's run this again. Play. As we move, now you see as we let go of D, we stop moving. So we only move while the D key is being pressed, and never when it's not being pressed. So now let's come back up here and copy this chunk of code, if event.key is equal to pygame.k_d, underneath the section that says key down. And we're going to copy this and paste it 1, 2, 3 times. So you should now have 4 of the exact same thing. Change the second one to A. Change this value out here to A. Set it equal to -5, and change this value to -5. Then, change both of these MX's to MY's. Set this third D to a W, and this fourth one to an S, corresponding out here. change these two x's in our pseudocode to y's, and in here, 5 is going to be negative first, and then positive. And same thing in the pseudocode. So the reason that we do this is because the game window functions at coordinate 0, 0 up here in the top corner. X counts positively going from left to right, and Y counts positively going from top to bottom. So if we want our player's Y value to increase, that means he's going to move down. If we want him to move down, we're adding to his Y value. If we want him to move up, we're going to be decreasing that Y value, so subtracting from it. So if you need to pause it right here for a second and make sure that you've got that all set up, go ahead and do that. The next part is not easy by a long shot because we have to pair events together. If event.key right here, pygame.k_d. Now, the thing is, if we just do another one that says if event.key is equal to pygame.k_a, set the value to 0, you might cause some problems. Because if you're moving in the D direction and hit A, you want to start moving the other direction. But you're just going to set the value to 0 because you're not pairing them with each other. So before the colon, let's add or event.key is equal to pygame.k_a. Check if the D key or A key is released. And then set the value still to 0. So now if we move back and forth, we can run this. And if we move back and forth across our axis, you'll see that he'll move. And he'll stop, and then he'll move the other direction, and he'll stop. Now up and down, we can kind of make him bounce, but there's nothing to stop it. I'm just tapping the buttons right now, he's just kind of bouncing up and down. So let's copy and paste this. And bam. Simply change the second one to a Y right here. And change this to the W key, the S key, because those are the two that are controlling our up and down movement. And then check if the W key or S key is released. Also change your pseudocode in the second line here to say Y value. Now if we save this and run it one more time, our player can move wherever we want him to. Now he moves in very blocky lines because this is designed to be more of that 8-bit style game where you've kind of got the, I guess only 8 actual directions of possible movement along any 90-degree axis. And then, well, anything within, let's see here, anything parallel to the edge of the screen, and then anything at a 45-degree angle to the edge of the screens are the angles that they can move in. So it's 8 different directions they can all move in. And that'll be perfect for the game because they're actually only going to be limited to moving in straight lines up and down due to the fact that they will be inside of a maze. So we can go ahead and close out of there for now. And we've got a little bit more to do. We're almost done, though. The second part doesn't take nearly as long. All we have to do is grab all of this, everything inside of our pygame.key down, copy it, give ourselves a little bit of space, and paste it. So you see we have now 2 separate pygame.key down chunks that are actually the exact same. And we're just going to come in here and modify this one. The D key is to move right, so we're going to type right here. The A key is to move left, so we'll type left here. W key is to move up, so we'll type up, again all caps, and this is to move down. What we've just done is change from checking the WASD keys to the up, down, left, and right arrow keys. Now, the arrow keys are me controlling player 2. So we need to change player 2 over here. The values can stay the same. So now all we have to do is change right here. Oop. Right, left, up, and down. Our values in our pseudocode. That is pretty easy. It wasn't that bad. It's not... If you're new to copy-paste large chunks of code, it can be a little frustrating at first when you're trying to find all the points where you need to modify a value. But as long as your first block works and your changes are simple, the second block's always going to be really easy. Now it gets hard if you wanted to make, like, player 2 have a different control setup, or if you're using a different spread of buttons, it would make it a little bit more difficult, especially if you end up using the number pads, which I believe the code for that is KP_. So that's, yeah, that's going to be the keypad. and that'll start referencing, like, I guess it's the 8, the 6, the 4, and the 2 on the actual keypad. So you could, in theory, have up to 3 sets of players on one keyboard. You have WASD with the spacebar, or you could have WASD with, like, the shift key, I, J, K, and L with the spacebar, up, down, left, and right arrow keys with the enter key on the regular keyboard set, and then the 8, 4, 5, and 6 keys with enter on the keypad. The only problem with that is fitting 4 people around a regular keyboard is a pain in the butt. So for now, 2 will be perfect. The last thing that we have to do before we're done for the day is this. Copy our key released, give it some room, paste it, and now change it to work for the second player. So first off, player 2, menu change, and now we need to change our keys. So our left and right movement here is going to be, of course, left and right, the constants. And then our up and down will be up and down, all caps. The last thing we have to do is come right over here to our pseudocode and make sure that this all matches. And as long as that does, we should be good to run our game. So we'll come right over here and run. Now, if we use those arrow keys, our red player can now move. Our blue player can move. They can move at the same time if they want to. You can make them dance with each other. It's not actually the easiest thing to do to keep track of both of them which way they need to go at the same time as one person. But you see, they move pretty nicely. They look good together. And they both move. Everything's set up. I think that's all we needed to do as far as this episode goes. We added about 35 lines of code, I would say. And a little bit to our player class, but that was super simple movement. And again, if you want them to move faster or slower, you can come right here into the game and just change this 5, -5, -5, and 5 to whatever you want. Whatever you think is a good game speed for them. When we build the lasers in the next episode, which will be the next thing we do, is episode 5 will include lasers. It will be the first time we use sprites, and just make sure that if you do change these, when we build the lasers class, they're going to have a speed of 10. You want to make sure that your speed is double whatever you're setting this value to. So if you decide to change that on your own because you want them to be faster or slower or whatever, make sure as we go through our laser class and our wall collisions that you account for the fact that you did change the speed at which they're moving from what I have. That'll require you to change a little bit of your code here and there relative to the same thing that I'm doing. As far as this goes, I think we're done for now. Check at the end of this video, as soon as episode 5 is up, there will be a link to it, a little annotation at the end of this one. And if you have any questions or comments, please leave them in the comments below this video. I'll see them as soon as you get them, and I'll make sure to respond to them. If I can't respond to you over the YouTube comments, I'll make sure that I come find you and I'll come help you out in whichever class you have, second hour or third hour. You just need to let me know. Until then, happy coding.